So you're thinking about moving to Palm Beach County, Florida. And when you talk to agents or you come in to visit, agents keep putting paperwork in front of you that they're requiring you to sign. And you're uncomfortable. You're not quite sure what the paperwork says, what the agreement is asking of you, what the obligation is. So you're not quite sure what to do. Well, that's what I'm here to do today. I'm here to explain what buyer agency looks like down here in Florida, what you could be signing, what the options are, and how to make a smart decision on all of it. Hi, I'm Chris Dyer, and I'm a real estate broker here in Palm Beach County, Florida. In today's video, I'll be going over 3 types of agreements that you could potentially be signing when working with a buyer agent here in Florida. My desire for you is that you would make a smart decision, and understanding these agreements is critical to that. I would also like to see you make a smart decision by subscribing to our channel. Hit that like button, subscribe, ring the bell so that you don't miss anything that we're giving out, advice and tips to making smart decisions in your real estate. Real estate buyer broker agreements aren't anything new. They've been around for years. I know for me personally, I moved out of the DC metropolitan market about 16 years ago now, and it was very common, or you didn't have a buyer without having an agreement. It was really part and parcel with all of it. Down here in Florida, specifically Palm Beach, I know when I moved down here and I got my license, what I found was that when I put a buyer broker agreement in front of people, they were like, this is a foreign language. We don't do that here. We're not comfortable with it. And I just let it go. It wasn't worth trying to swim upstream in a market that people weren't doing that. But now it is commonplace because everyone's doing it, which is, in my opinion, a really, really good thing. So, but the reason things changed, to understand kind of the history behind it, is that going back to August of 2024, NAR, the National Association of Realtors, settled a lawsuit that was brought by sellers dealing with specifically buyer agent compensation. And through that settlement, it now is a requirement, if you're working with a buyer, is that you have a form of compensation in writing that says if you're working together, what the compensation would be. Okay, so that's the history behind all of it. The 3 types of forms, first and foremost, a pre-touring agreement. Pre-touring agreement is really just an if we work together, there's no obligation. It's an if situation. You could look at the property with the agent and then buy with another agent. That's really whatever that's worth. But it does spell out compensation should this agent earn your business and get the opportunity to work with you. But usually the pre-touring would turn into one of the following: a showing agreement, which is property specific, where if you're working with a buyer as an agent, myself working with a buyer, if you were to buy one of these properties on this list, then I would be due this compensation, fill in the blank, whatever that compensation is in there. So showing agreements, I'll get into why that would work for you or why it might work for the agent and be a win-win. And then the last one is called a buyer broker agreement. That's more for a specific period of time. Any properties that fall into the category of what you're spelling out in that buyer broker. Those are the 3 types that you would normally see down here. So let's dive into each of them. Let's go into the pre-touring agreement. The pre-touring agreement is literally a 1-pager. Again, as I mentioned, it is an if situation. If you were going to buy a property that I'm showing you, I could be due compensation in this amount, fill in the blank, whatever that number may be, but there's no obligation. Again, you're not stuck with that particular agent. This to me is like you're putting your big toe in the deep end of the pool to see if it's hot or cold to decide if you want to jump in. If I was going to compare these forms to dating or like relationships, I would say this is an agent presenting this form would just be asking for the date. Can we go for a cup of coffee? Can we have lunch together? See if this is going to work. That's what the pre-touring agreement is. From my perspective as a real estate broker, I don't really offer this form myself. This isn't something that we do. I would move towards the showing agreement or towards the buyer broker, and I'll explain why when I get deeper into the rest of it. But ultimately, most of my business today that we've built is by referral. There's already a level of trust that I think is there when people are working with me, where I think a pre-touring, there's just no trust. You have no knowledge of who you're going out with. Again, the dating example, we're just having a cup of coffee, trying to get to know you. Second form is that showing agreement. I would say this is like we're dating. We're dating around specific properties though. I use this form for my investors. I use this form for people who I have a lower level of trust and I'm trying to build trust with. So this is a couple pages. It would spell out my brokerage and the buyer, you, and it's saying, hey, if I show you, let's say 5 properties, if you go to buy any of these 5 properties in the specific time frame that's allotted, 30 days, 60 days, I would be due compensation. The compensation would be spelled out. In that, it goes over the obligations of both you as the consumer and me as the broker about how we're going to work together. What are we obligating each other to? And at the end of the day, I think a showing agreement could be a great way to start a relationship when it comes to these type of agreements, because you're going out, you're going on a few dates, you're checking out different properties. The agent should be seeing if you're a good fit for them and someone that they want to work with. And then you as the consumer are saying, hey, is this agent doing their job? Do I feel well represented? Are they advocating for me? Are they equipping me with knowledge and information that I couldn't get off of Zillow or Realtor.com or off a piece of paper? Like, are they really giving me insights and information well beyond what I can get on my own? So I think this is a really good place to start in a relationship, as I mentioned. So that's really what the showing agreement is, but it does obligate you. You are dating, but around specific properties. The buyer broker agreement. So the buyer broker agreement is really what an agent is going to work toward to getting you to sign and agree to. That's what I would do. And I think you as a consumer should want to move towards this type of agreement unless you're an investor or maybe you're working with different agents for different properties. But if you're working with an agent to buy a residential property that you're like, hey, I'm looking to buy in a specific neighborhood or a specific zip code or a county or counties, this would be an agreement that again spells out the obligations that each party has to one another, very similar to the showing agreement, but it spells out a longer period of time. So a buyer broker would be that you and I are now working together to compare it to a relationship. We're engaged. Like, tell your friends, put it on social media. You and I, let's go. We're kind of marching down the aisle here. What I would say is that you're going to open houses. You are telling people, you're telling other agents, I have representation. Thank you. I'm excited to take a look at this property. But if they ask you, do you have an agent? Your answer is yes, I have an agent. I'm working with somebody. I like the buyer broker agreement because I know who I'm working with. I know where I'm dedicating my time and energy to. I can only work with so many buyers at a time. So it's important to me to know, hey, am I working with you? Do we have a relationship that's under contract? Or are we still trying to figure out all of that? Or are you just house hunting on your own and just pumping me for information to better things for you because you're going to go a different direction? All of that is fine. All of it's fine. But defining the relationship will help people define their time, where their allegiance is, and where their time is being committed to. Okay. I wouldn't say that any of these are like a marriage though, right? I gave you the comparison. The pre-touring is like you're asking for a date, you're going out. The showing agreement is really like, hey, we are dating. We have some exclusivity, but it's around specific properties. And then the last one I mentioned, the buyer broker agreement, was we're engaged, right? We're engaged for a period of time. Let's call it 3 months or 6 months or a year, depending on what you're looking for and what each party is willing to work towards. But in doing all of that, right, none of them is really like a marriage. A marriage to me is you're committing to life. So in this situation, you can terminate the showing agreement. You can terminate the buyer broker agreement. There's actually a termination clause in the agreement, in the contract. And I think that's important. To me, when I'm advising clients, if I'm asking you to enter into an agreement and there's contingencies, I always go over what the contingencies cover. And if you want to get out of the agreement because you've learned something new that's causing you not to want to move forward, the relationship is soured, you don't feel like you're being represented well, you should know how to get out of the agreement. You can get out of the agreement. There is a termination clause. There may be a modest amount of compensation that could be filled in if the buyer were to terminate the agreement. And then a little reminder, maybe as just like a side tip here, if you are calling upon a listing agent that you want to go see their property, a listing agent does not need to have you sign any of these forms. They represent the seller. You don't have representation in that situation. They can show you their own listing, and you do not have to fill out any of these three forms, the pre-touring, the showing agreement, or a buyer broker. Now, they might want to earn your business and make it sound like you have to sign one of these forms, but you do not need to sign any of those forms to take a look at the listing agent's property that they have listed. I think that covers that. To me, I would always want to have agency, or always want to have a buyer agent if I'm buying something big, and this might be the largest purchase you might make to date. So having somebody advocating for you, helping you through a process, negotiating on your behalf is well worth it. So I have a client, longstanding client, and they wanted to go down and look at a property out of my area that I cover in the Palm Beach area. It was, well far south. I didn't cover it. And they reached out to a listing agent for this property they wanted to go take a look at. I didn't know this was happening. And when they got to the property, again, I mentioned listing agent. When they got to the property, the agent said, "Hey, Miss Buyer, you have to sign this buyer broker agreement for 90 days or I can't show you the property." Now, they had driven an hour and a half out of their way to come see the property. They were unaware they had to sign anything, and they signed this buyer broker against really their choice, but they really felt like they were kind of pot committed here. They signed the agreement. She got back the following day after looking at it. They didn't want to buy it. And she called me and she said, "Hey, this just happened to me." And I said, "Hey, I'm so sorry. Number one, that happened to you. What happened was not right. That's not what should have happened. You didn't need to sign it. The listing agent did not need to make you sign any form. But now you are in agreement with this particular agent, and the agent put in the agreement, in the buyer broker agreement, that if they bought any property in the entire state of Florida, whether it was in his jurisdiction that he was covering or anywhere in the whole state," which is a little bit crazy. So anyway, she had some choices of what she could do. She decided to just wait out the 90 days. And on day number, I think 91 or 92, we started working again. She didn't buy down there. She bought closer to here. And everything worked out fine. But it was really a very uncomfortable situation for her. She didn't need to sign the agreement. And I think that's another reason to be equipped with what these agreements mean and what you do and don't need to sign as a consumer. Okay, showing agreement. So I work with investors. Some investors that I work with, they might be looking for land because they want to build. Some might be looking for a flip, where they want to buy something, renovate it, and sell it, flip it. Other people might be looking for duplexes or triplexes or things like that. So, but they're looking for opportunity. And I would love to say that I can bring all opportunity to everybody. But in working with an investor, you can't dedicate 24 hours a day to finding deals. Deals come how they come. And I tell my investors, "Hey, I would love to work with you exclusively. Now, I would like to work with you that if I find you a property and you renovate it, that I sell it for you." So I advise them, just sign a showing agreement. Sign a showing agreement on the properties that agent's bringing to you. And you may be working with 5 or 7 or 10 agents on that. And as long as those agents understand that you're looking for deals, that really shouldn't be a big problem, right? And then I gave you the example also that if you're a buyer and you want to get to know who you're working with and who you're making that engagement with, that you might want to try on that relationship. And I think trying on the relationship is to say, "Hey, agent, buyer, let's do a showing agreement. Let's go out maybe once, maybe twice. We'll put the properties we're going to be looking at on the showing agreement. There's still obligations, consumer to agent and agent to consumer. Clearly, there's compensation on there about what the agent would be due compensation-wise if they bought one of these properties on the list. But you're not making a long-term commitment. That's really what it is. You're not making a long-term commitment. You're making a commitment on the properties they've seen, which in my opinion, they've probably earned something for just taking you to the properties, preparing for the showings, bringing the research, all that stuff for it. But I do think that going from a showing agreement as a consumer, it should be your goal to find the right person to represent you, commit time to finding the right property for you that fits your lifestyle and your needs. So unless you're an investor, again, on the showing agreement, there probably should be some movement from showing agreement into a buyer broker. And there is one more thing that I wanted to share with you about compensation. So when you're filling out, or when the agent's filling out, with you, these compensation agreements, showing agreement, buyer agency, or the buyer broker agreement, In filling these out, there's going to be a number, whether it be a flat fee or a percentage filled in on these numbers. It is normal in the market down here for the seller of the home that you're buying to pay the compensation to the buyer's agent. So understand that because there's a number on your agreement, again, a percentage or a flat fee, that number should be offset by what the seller is going to be offering the agent, and that should be inserted into your contract. So you will see that. It is quite rare, in my opinion, that you are paying the difference between what a seller's paying and what your agreement is. It should be, aligned together with expectations in the marketplace. So don't be fearful, I guess is my point. Don't be fearful that you're going to be stuck paying, a percentage, let's call it 3% of your purchase price that you don't have, right? Because the seller will be offsetting that with compensation due your buyer agent. All right. Hopefully you find that helpful and a little bit of a relief as well too. So comment below if this video helped you. You may have more questions that you need answers to. I would love to answer them for you. You may have comments of what did help you get clarity around this topic of buyer agreements, what you're required to sign, but I reply to all of my comments. So please take the time. It means a lot to do that. Thanks for watching the video. Remember, this isn't just about real estate. This is about your life. This is about an investment. This is about your future. I've had the opportunity of helping hundreds of families move to Palm Beach County, Florida, and I would love the opportunity to help you too. Thanks for watching today, and don't forget to subscribe and like the video.